You won't believe how hard I felt at my New Year's resolutions already, but in the act of transparency and openness, I wanted to share the 0 draft pilot episodes that we've already filmed, and also, just kind of show you what the journey looks like. And the resolution actually came from something I started a few weeks ago as I'm putting my baby boy to sleep in the middle of the night with not much else to do. I start these 21-second TikTok explainer videos where I distill my 15 plus years experience in the NHS, in global health policy, in foreign affairs and international relations, into videos that try and explain issues of policy and politics. And it also builds on something I did about 9-10 years ago with a couple of mates across the political spectrum, so people from the left and right of politics and everything else in between, where we wanted to increase the engagement of younger people in politics. It was an initiative called Ask Amy. It was really cool. We did loads of interesting things and got loads of coverage, and we even built an app where people could ask our character, Amy, questions about politics, and we would give them answers and build a database of knowledge and questions that people were asking, kind of similar to Siri but on primitive technology back then. So for 2023 I wanted to tap into that energy again, and but do it on a more personal level, in the area that I've grown up all my life. I'm actually in the same council house that I grew up as a child, here in Stratford. So the intention is to invite friends that I've known from across the kind of worlds of policy and business across those 15-20 years of professional life into East London, to also speak to residents, local councillors, religious leaders, etc., and explore the kind of EastEnder effect of London, of East London, and also learn from other people. So I do hope you join me on this really personal journey. We're going to get to the video podcasts, the 0 pilot episodes that I filmed with my neighbour down the road and my friend Busayo, who I've known for over 20 years, also another East London lad, born and bred in East London. So, in its glorious failure, here is our first pilot episode. Why don't we get into it? So we went down to the Olympic Village to do some filming, and the first schoolboy error was making an adjustment just as we were about to shoot, which took Busayo completely out of frame. Let me just take a picture, because I don't know if this is too close.
Unless you want me to just sit here like that, because I could do that.
Yeah. Well, it's recording anyway.
Okay, cool. Right.
And yours is recording?
Yeah.
And they'll do as well?
Yeah.
Alright.
You alright? Let's do it.
Yeah. Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year.
How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
Not too bad.
It's a little bit interesting.
So first failure, being completely oblivious to the fact that Busayo's not in shot. So we're chatting away for 20 minutes without realising that it's just me on camera, which isn't that interesting. And we do get back to having both of us on screen when the wind blows the camera off.
About brushes with the police, and then Alright, so we're back, literally learning as we go. Lesson learned to get some kind of things that hold down the camera for windy situation.
So first of all, I didn't learn the lesson quickly enough, because when we do shoot it again, you're going to see the camera blows off a couple of times, but we only realised after we filmed this last bit that the first half wasn't in focus. So we reconvened later that day to give it another shot. Thankfully I've learned one lesson, so it's not a complete failure to have a phone to capture the audio, as it's really windy. So cue the intro music for episode 0 with Busayo.
Take 2, take 3. It's been a bit of a struggle to get here, but we're here now.
We're here now.
In the elements, outside.
Outside.
Thank you so much for jumping on this. This is part of my New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
To talk a little bit more about where we've lived all our lives.
Yeah.
So a quick introduction. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So my name's Busayo Abidakun. I have lived in East London for all my life, 36 odd years of it. Lived in East London, lived in Newham, and I work in recruitment and also run a social enterprise called Impact Black.
Cool, and thank you for returning the favour, because I've jumped on your podcast
podcast as well. So this will be a series of podcasts we'll be doing. But introduction, Adeyemi. Also lived in East London all my life, 35 odd years there. In health policy, so over 15 years experience in the NHS, and now a civil servant in the Department of Health. So I'm a little bit restricted from what I can say, but it was really weighing on my heart to talk more about the area and I don't know, all manners of things: culture, economics, jobs, health, policing, race. East London and Newham and Stratford in particular, such a rich history, which I don't think has been spoken long enough about. I suppose I saw a gap in the market, so to speak. I know there's loads of podcasts out there, but in the popular podcasts that I listen to about politics, they're all a certain type, at least the popular ones. And even the other ones are like urban lifestyle, slightly comedic, and I never saw like that balance between all sorts of comedy, philosophy, politics, life, culture. So really glad that my best friend of over 20 odd years is jumping on me to help start that off. So perhaps like a first question is about what about East London and Stratford do you most like, or are you most interested to talk about?
So in terms of most interested to speak about, I think East London, as you've already mentioned, has a rich history, and there are like stories within that I don't feel like are they're not as told as some of the other stories. Do you know what I mean? Around London, and I think that I'm really interested to explore some of the stories, particularly like the migration story, how East London has changed as a place, and my place in it. Like I said, I've lived here for over 30 years. I've lived here for most of my life, and my parents, have lived here for a really long time. So, like, I'm a little bit biased and just wanting to be able to have to share that story. Do you know what I mean? Of where I've come from. So, like, that's what.
And that migration stories are very popular one because, and I'll get the right facts to pop up on the screen somewhere, but. I understand Newham is one of the most transient populations. Like, people come in, live for about 9 months to a year, and then move on to somewhere else. We came from Nigeria when we were 3. Thankfully, I'm still in the same council house that I grew up in. But most other people move out, a bit more towards Ilford, Essex, or other parts. And there's so much that another stat to clarify, but I think over 70% of the world's population is going to live in urban cities. So there's something that the world will need to get right, and city planners around the world about how we deal with, dynamic communities. Even the way of working is changing, more hybrid working, etc. So city planners, council leaders, governments will need to understand how to manage that effectively. And Newham's done a pretty good job in some areas. So there is something about being the flag bearer, the torch bearer for that, and showing the rest of the world how it can be done, and also learning from other parts of the world. So in this series, looking to talk to loads of other people, both residents, local people, friends and family from outside of the area, to gain their insights and gain their thoughts. Is there any particular issue in East London that you're really keen to focus on?
I think like I was saying, like it's migration story, what that means for the area, what that means for the borough. In terms of the different people that come here, I think that's a particular interesting issue. In terms of, you can call it an issue. I like to think it's a great thing about East London, a great thing about Newham.
Such a melting pot.
So many different types of people in this place, and I think that brings up some lots of interesting issues and stuff, positive and challenging as well.
Speak about the positive. What's one of the things that you really like about different people coming in, change happening?
Because you just get a different experience of different people's lives if you're willing to tap into it. If you're willing to talk to your neighbours and speak to the people around you, living here, you will experience a lot of different things. Do you know what I mean?
Facts.
There's a Somalian community here, Filipino community here, Nigerian, Ghanaian, people from Romania, people from Latvia, Portuguese, people from the Portuguese colonies, you will experience a lot of different culture here. Do you know what I mean? So, if you're willing to tap into that, that's a beautiful thing. It's nice. It's a really nice
One of the
thing.
challenging things, though, about that melting pot, actually, that I found is sometimes when I'm going to work, I pass people that are clearly tourists going into Airbnbs or hotels around the area, and there's that distinct noise you can hear as they take their suitcases and they roll in, and it makes that rolling noise on the pavement. And I'm a bit 50-50 about it, because sometimes I'm like, yeah, great, bringing more footfall to businesses around the area. There's also a bit of me that, I know my neighbours, I know people around me, and then when you see different phases every week, it's a little bit jarring, but it's also a sign of, the attractiveness of the area and opportunities here as well. Yeah,
I think there is something around the story of Newham, the story of East London in terms of its change and the nature of the way the community sees itself, because
Alright, sorry about that.
Being by the wind.
Being by the wind, and this is such a basic thing, but I was really keen to just get the New Year's resolution going. So even though we've had challenges, to record this,
keep trying.
Just gotta keep moving. Just gotta keep going. Yeah. And so, I mean, hopefully, it goes on for the rest of the year. Like all New Year's resolutions, I think they probably die around April or something. Anyway, but hopefully this continues. What type of people are you interested to learn from, speak to understand that story of East London, of Stratford, of Bow, of other areas?
Yeah, I think the people who live here, and not just sort of the quote-unquote experts. I'm interested to hear from the experts too, don't get me wrong. If there's people who've written about Newham, who've written about East London, who have who are quote-unquote experts who work in the area, I'm keen to hear from them. But I'm also keen to hear just the general stories of people that live here. Just the general story.
Actually, that's something interesting to unpack, because drawing a little bit of a political link here, you see in some of the bigger elections of recent years, Brexit, Trump and other stuff, there is that, here we go again. Alright, so battling through this, lost the number of takes, but we were talking about lived experience experts. And I think there's a different kind of story that emerges when you talk to people purely on that lived experience, because an expert, it has some selection bias in the evidence they select to present their case. That's a whole different kind of sociology. But what do you think happens when we talk to local residents and people on that lived experience versus experts who through historical archives, etc.?
It's like you said, the selection bias on what people choose to look at, and if you don't look at it from the perspective of the people that live there, you're always gonna capture it from an outsider perspective, or the perspective of someone who's choosing to look. Whereas if you're just asking someone who just lives in one of these houses here, one of these flats, they're just going to tell you what is important to them, and that I think it's important to hear the story of people that are important, or the story of what's important to people who live in this area.
And there's another thing there, stories, that's really important to me, because I think we've seen through recent times that stories are winning people's hearts and minds more than facts and figures. Drawing a bit of a random link here, but with vaccines and people that had conspiracy theories about them were more convinced by the stories and thoughts rather than particular facts and figures.
Because that's what's real to them.
That's what's real to them. So in terms of a story of East London, through all the conversations we're going to have, what would you like to see emerging, or what do you hope to see emerging?
I think for me it's like I said, just understanding the stories of the people, the migration story, and the story of the movement of people here. I think is really interesting. The story of the change. I think the change that's happening in this area would be interesting to share. And also, like I said, I think I'm a solutions person, innit? I'm a person that really likes to hear about what can be done to create changes in a positive way for the area, and what the area looks like with that positive change as well, is something that I think is important to touch on. Because what happens when, let's say, Newham isn't an area that is an area of say social deprivation or poverty, as we know, there's like poverty here. What happens? Well, what does Newham look like then?
Yeah, an alternative or a different view. That's interesting, and I wonder, through all the people we speak to and the things that we uncover, to understand what might be the blockers or the things that are preventing that transition from happening. What are the enablers that could enable it to happen quicker or not? So that's really exciting. I'm obviously the reason why I take my coat off to try and balance that camera. But it's been a good start. The intention is to keep these conversations happening often, and maybe we will end it there. So if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking through all the terrible audio, the camera falling over, and all the other little mistakes and lessons learned that will improve in future episodes. Here is the episode, the pilot I filmed with my neighbour down the road. Test one.
Hello.
How you doing, mate?
See you. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, this is interesting. The first
podcast
conversation.
First
EastEnders effect, East Side of effect.
East Side. I don't know where we're going to go with it, but I think we've definitely asked like the people we know,
Because this video podcast is about the people and about how we relate to the people and stuff like that.
And also, as I said, we want to see the effect of our name.
That's the key thing. Like, that's the thing we're agreeing on, right? The effects, our effects on people, the effects of stuff we're talking about on people, and the effect of like stuff around the world, policies, even in this country, stuff happening around the world, on people in East London.
No, definitely. I think we're talking about effects, and one of the things that we have to look at is, for me, I'm youthful. I would definitely speak for, the youth and kind of bring that angle because it's kind of my heart. And I think the east side of the youth, I think, have a lot of issues and have a lot of, I think, things we could discuss, man, because I think it's very interesting and I think it can be transferred. It's not just East London. We're coming from the place that we're from, but I think a lot of people can, from whatever the area, I think even globally,
absolutely
might be able to take something from our conversation.
Absolutely. There's a lot that affects not only young people but older people, which I'll probably talk about, not give away my age, but I think a lot of people can relate to, and that's where the ambition for talking about this came from. So maybe introduce ourselves. You go first.
Well, my name is Jahi Hodges. I'm 26 years old, and my main job is I'm a mechanical engineer. I enjoy that, love that. It's something in your hands. But also I do like conversations, I do like debates, I do like geopolitics, I do like politics, and so that's maybe something that we kind of, became friends. So it's beautiful.
We've been neighbours for years, lived in East London all our lives, and bonded over politics discussion, which is where I work in mostly. So at ADME, 35 years old, and lived in East London all my life. Work in policy, mostly health policy. So I've worked in the NHS for over 15 years, now working at the Department of Health for the UK government. And there's a lot that I know about policy and about not only domestic policy but also foreign policy. So I've worked with the African Union and with governments around the world. And there's a lot of information up here, but not a lot that I've shared to the people. 2023 I wanted to step out a little bit, and we've been having loads of conversations down our street and around the area. So I thought, let's get out and communicate that a bit more.
No, I think that's a beauty, and it's going to be something that we're going to be delving into, because
real life.
First run, real life, authentic. But I think it's beautiful because, again, I come from a place from looking at politics and looking at issues within our community, and I don't know all the stuff that you know. And I'm very interested to be able to bring politics to, let's call it the hood.
Facts.
And I'm a true believer of being engaged in politics, being engaged with what's happening, because there's a saying that politics is downstream from culture and culture is upstream to politics. So there's symbiosis between how culture affects politics and how politics affects culture, and we kind of, I think, I want to see what the people out here kind of in East London feel and how they feel about policies and how they affect their lives, and maybe even educate people about how maybe taking more interest into their politics, because I think, I don't know if everybody agrees with me, but the country's not been run like, you know, we have you know,
could be doing
different,
better.
yeah, we could
be
we
doing
have
better.
different sides, and we could be doing better. And I think a way that we could do better is if the people are, you know, engaged more. We live in a democracy, and a part of democracy is everybody being informed, everybody making a choice, and everybody having the freedom of thought.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what, like, so obviously being politics and policy, or mostly policy for a little bit, there are like podcasts and some other stuff that I see, but not really stuff for like younger people, and particularly people in urban communities, people in East London, like real people in East London.
No,
So that's
so
why I'm
true.
really glad that we're doing this, because
So
like you
true.
said as well, like we're gonna do interviews with people, like do deep dives in particular subject areas, and like try and talk about things in a way that more people can understand and relate to.
Yeah.
So this is our first test.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, and engaging as we build a community, you know, from East London community on our podcast. We're able to engage with them and see what they want to, you know, speak about, maybe issues that they come across, and I feel we're going to grow so much from this.
Yeah.
We're going to grow so much from this and learn so much. I think that's the main thing about why I want to do this.
Cool.
I think.
So, just before we wrap up,
yeah.
maybe let's do a test question, a deep political question, to see where our mind's at. And in future series, we'll do some other ones. Right, that's where we cut, because I don't know the question. Knocks.
Yeah.
But,
But cuts are perfect.
Yeah. So, like, what thing can we talk about?
So.
Like just something in 3
okay.
minutes, and then we wrap up.
All right, cool. So, all right, bring me one policy that you could bring that links from where you are to thing, and then I will, and then.
From where I am in work, you mean?
Yeah. So you said you got policies that could affect. What's one policy that you do think affects?
Okay, yeah. So striking, like strikes.
Okay.
So you know, nurses have been striking, right?
Okay.
And loads of people are striking. So yeah, like if you look at the ratio and the number of people in poverty in Newham, one of the largest in London in the country. So nurses need to be paid a fair wage.
Yes.
It's real. You know, people that collect our dustbins, like people on the trains, etc. And teachers, you know, they need to be paid a fair wage. It's getting expensive in Newham. What do you think? Like, do you think it's all fair? Do you think we should be giving them the raises they're after, or you know, like we need to do a little bit more research?
Well, my opinion of that. Let's just work this out. What is my opinion? I think, all right, we've got strikes. That's the issue. Now, why are they striking? I think they're striking because of lack of money, struggle. I grew up in struggle, man. I grew up in struggle. So I understand not being able to afford shopping, not being able to afford gas and electric, not being able to afford certain things, and working hard and still not being able to afford that in the London city that we live in. It's the cost of living is quite high.
It's mad.
So we've got to talk about cost of living. I think one of the main reasons why cost of living is happening is because of inflation. Now inflation is happening because of global and national reasons, which then affects downstream to the lowest, you know, the nurses, the doctors and stuff like that. Whether I think the strikes are effective or not is a question as well.
That's interesting. You don't think they're effective, or you don't think they're effective?
Well, I believe that strikes is a part of democracy, and I'm glad that we can do that.
And that unions can form
Unions
and
can
vote and
form.
say legally we want to strike.
Yes, legally we want to strike. I think that's very important. I mean, quickly to just offshoot, but if you see in Iran, they're trying to mobilise the strikes because of the Iran regime. The lady, I can't remember her name,
Who died, unfortunately, for the
um,
culture police.
from the culture police and stuff like that. So we can see, you know, that strikes and things like this do help in terms of moving the conversation and also moving the country and the government to do the right thing. And so I believe that these strikes are aimed at the right, you know, at the politicians to try and make effects. But does it? Does it actually make the effects? So what they're trying to look for is pay, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pay increase.
To rise at the same level as inflation.
Yeah,
even a
to
little
rise
bit
at the
more.
same level of inflation, which is fair, isn't it? It is fair. So yeah, my overarching opinion is more of, I'd like to delve into more of these issues and kind of see, is it effective? Is there other more effective ways we can do things?
You know what, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you, that's a really interesting thing to see about the effectiveness, because another group that I think we could explore, particularly about like how effective it's been in East London, is the Insulate Britain people. You know, the people stopping on streets, sitting down on road and like blocking people.
Just Oil
like
and
Just Oil and all that.
Yeah.
So
Extinction Rebellion.
before like last year, did you know about them?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so your political radar is a little bit more
Yeah,
active than most
yeah.
people. But most people
Wouldn't have
known
until
about
they
them.
started
Until they
chucking
started
milk on people, smashing
orange
windows,
paint,
orange paint,
yeah.
Langoff, and all the stuff they done. Do you know what? Blocking the streets. That was one of the funny
mate.
ones. Yeah.
Are you for it?
Me personally, mixed emotions about it. One thing I feel is that I think disrupting people's lives generally
Peacefully.
peacefully is okay as a part of our democracy and shows how strong we are, that we can do that. But I think there is boundaries and limits. I did feel like some of these boundaries were pushed past, but again, I don't disagree with it. I just believe that because we got free will and free choice, that these people can do it. But if I agreed with them in terms of their side of thinking, I don't know what they're doing is effective, because what you're trying to do, you're trying to affect the people. You're trying to bring the people with you. Now, if you're causing issues like stopping people from going to work, people are struggling. They just talk about cost of
Or
living.
going to the hospital, like some
Yeah,
people
people,
are blocked
and all
from
this
dropping to
stuff.
go to,
So, is it effective? Are you bringing the people with you, or are you turning the people against you? Does that help your agenda or hurt your agenda?
Well, a key question there is whether the people are their target audience, because they seem to.
Well, I think it is. Because
interesting. I'm not sure.
I think they want to go and they've done marches, at Parliament. They've done this and that, and we've seen it before. But I feel like they've become radical now. And the radicalization, when I say radicalization, is almost terrorism, because terrorism is a political act, And so there's people that I've read a report, somebody dies. There was an ambulance that somebody needs to go to ambulance and someone died. Some woman, she was supposed to have a kid and she was trying to get to the hospital, and she had the kid in the and that could have caused a child. So I think you should think about the effects of what you're doing, also about the narrative.
Well, that's one thing that's
controlling the narrative. But I feel they tried to control the narrative by aggressively doing things, and I don't know if that was effective, as I was saying.
Well, what's effective about their approach is it actually changes the narrative slightly. So there's this thing called the Overton window, which is the window of what's considered possible in policy, right? And when someone does something new or different, it shifts your mind, and I've never thought that was possible, and so the window is shifted slightly. But we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So an interesting place to stop, and something we can pick up maybe in the next.
No, definitely. I think there's more meat on the bone there.
Absolutely.
No, for sure.
All
Well,
right.
yeah, this is the first podcast.